Good morning, Sunny. So we have,
Morning.
we're just waiting, I believe Beverly Hills board member. Doo -doo. Claudia, were you able to send that email link out to Vince, Beverly Hills?
Yes, I was.
He didn't respond, but perhaps I should call him.
Yeah, I got no response.
Okay, I'm going to call him.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a 310 number. I wonder, is that Vince or is that someone else?
If it's 310270, that's Melanie Torrey from LADWP.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Still waiting for Vince then.
No.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
I left a message, so we'll see what happens.
Okay. Did you still want to wait a few minutes?
Sunny, what do you think we should do?
Well, we need Vince, don't we, to approve at least the consent items? Or can we move forward without Vince to go approve those items?
I don't, what's the required number for a quorum? Do we have, we may have a quorum. The county DWP and Santa Monica are here.
Yeah, we do have a quorum, so we could probably move without Vince.
Okay. Then let's go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm filling in for Jane Gray for this meeting, and my name is Claudia Flores. I'm also joined by my colleagues, Matt Naffley, Amy Lynn Williams, and Justin Naquanta. So it is 10:04, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. So thank you everyone for attending today's July 14th Santa Monica Groundwater Sustainability Agency Board meeting. This meeting is being held pursuant to AB 361. This meeting is being held virtually because an in-person meeting may present an imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees and/or members of the board. We'll go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now I'm going to take roll call. So Board of Directors, please indicate that you are present by sitting here or present. Thank you. So Chair Wang,
Here.
Vice Chair Natoli,
Here.
Director Nguyen,
Here.
Director Singletary,
Here.
and Director DeMoss. Okay, so I heard no indication that Director DeMoss is here. So thank you. Roll call is complete and we have determined a quorum. Chair Wang, can we move on to the consent items?
Yes, please. So I begin with the consent items. There's 2 items on consent. First one's approval of resolution for 2022-03 for continuance of AB 361. And the second one's approval of meeting minutes from the April 14th board meeting. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve those consent items?
Vice Chair Natoli, so moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Claudia, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Yes. So Chair Wang,
Yes.
Vice Chair Natoli,
Aye.
Director Nguyen,
Yes.
Director Singletary,
Aye.
and Director DeMoss. Okay, Director DeMoss is still not here. Okay, thank you. And our next item of approval is the meeting minutes from April 14, 2022. But first, are there any questions or comments on the draft meeting minutes?
Not for me.
No comments.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Vice Chair,
Oh,
So moved.
go ahead.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, now I'm going to take a roll call vote. Chair Wang,
Yes.
Vice Chair Natoli,
aye.
Director Nguyen,
Aye.
Director Singletary,
Aye.
and Director DeMoss. Okay, Director DeMoss still not present. Okay, thank you. Next, we will do the public forum. And the public forum is for the public to address and ask questions of the Board of Directors on any matter not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the Santa Monica Groundwater Sustainability Agency. As a reminder to everyone, what's on the agenda today is an overview of Executive Order N0722 and filling data gaps identified in the GSP and grant funding. I do see that we have someone participating in the public forum, so I will go ahead and call your name. Ms. McPherson, I see that you had requested to participate, so please unmute yourself, and while you do that, Mr. Naquantup will share his screen and get ready to start the timer, and you have 3 minutes. So Mr. Naquantup, please start the timer once Ms. McPherson starts speaking. So the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Patricia McPherson, Grassroots Coalition. I had lost my cheat sheet here. What I'm saying disappeared and all this. In the meantime, what I would like to find out, and I'm hoping that we have time to speak on the items that are on the agenda today as we get to them, and I'd like assurance of that. But I would also like to bring up past issues of materials that were sent to the Department of Water Resources, and just to make note of the fact that while Grassroots Coalition has been asked to provide information after we had already provided specific information. And in particular, the specific information that we have provided has to do with dewatering efforts on the Playa Vista site as it pertains to groundwater throughout the lower, more southern part of the sub-Santa Monica Basin. And we would like you to understand that we are now having to provide that again to DWR, even though we had provided that to the GSA in order to forward and have included in their report to DWR, and it was not included. Additionally, we'll be asking today for further information to see if the GSA partners have garnered any of the information that has not been garnered yet that we had asked be garnered. Sounds like a circular argument I'm making here, but what I'm asking for is the people that have the jobs to do this actually do it, rather than putting the burden on us to provide all this information that we do through Public Record Act requests, which we are in the process of doing and have been doing and will continue to do, but we would like to have this be a partnership with the GSA. And also, from a disclosure standpoint, I would like to acknowledge that Ms. Gold is, her husband is Mark Gold, past head of, scientific head of Heal the Bay, and that we have just become aware of private meetings with Heal the Bay and Friends of Bayona with the Southern California wetlands, which those meetings are being held with CDFW and the coastal agency that Mark Gold now heads up, and that we believe that, I mean, we have asked to be participatory in these meetings and have gotten TRAs back that are disparaging towards any other organizations, including ours, but also that we wish to be a part of these meetings, and we have not been. So full disclosure, I think, is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Is there anyone here that is participating, that would like to participate in public forum as well? If so, please raise your hand.
I see there's one in the chat box that's requesting to speak.
Jeanette is requesting to speak.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Vosberg, if you can unmute yourself, and once you start speaking, we'll start the timer. Thank you.
Okay.
You can go ahead. The floor is yours.
I believe she muted herself again accidentally.
Oh, Ms. Vosberg, if you can unmute yourself, please. You're still on mute.
I don't see her on the list of attendees. I wonder if she dropped off by accident.
Oh, really? I
know, I
see.
see Jeanette, but she's muted. Jeanette, you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I see her.
There you go.
Okay,
Good.
now am I unmuted?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a new brochure that we did, which recently within the last year, we've come up with some information that seems to be very significant. And so I have put together a brochure, and we would like to send it to everybody on the call. And I'm wondering if it would be possible for everyone to give me in chat their email address so that I can send them out a brochure. It's a 4-page brochure in color, and it explains some of our concerns which would be relevant to this meeting. And so I'm wondering, I noticed that there's probably about 20 people on the call, and I'd like to be able to send a brochure out to each of them. Can I get an email address from everyone?
Mr. Chair, this is Vice Chair Natoli. If I could make a recommendation.
Please do.
What I would suggest, Ms. Vosberg, is that Ms. Vosberg perhaps send that to Dr. Gold. Dr. Gold can then put it up on the screen and everybody will be able to see it at one time. Or if not to Dr. Gold, perhaps Ms. Flores could also upload that and make sure it's visible to everybody's on the call. That way we don't have to worry about.
Okay, and we could do that right now?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, well, I will send her an email then on that.
That would be my recommendation,
All
Mr.
right, I'll do that right now. Thank you very
And
much.
Jeanette, if you have a website link to the document, you can post that in the chat and everybody can copy it and go right to your website with the direct link. So we
Oh,
have
thank
several ways we can get that out.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I just want to be sure that everyone gets it because I think it's really critical and we put a lot of effort into putting it together. So I will send a link. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fosberg. Would the board like to wait until Dr. Gold receives that email from Ms. Fosberg, or?
Yeah, we could wait. Is there any other questions during the public forum? Anyone else? Maybe we could go to that and come back to Ms. Fosberg.
Yeah, do you give me a minute? Okay.
Okay, is there anyone here that would also like to participate in public forum? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, I do not see any hands that are raised.
Yeah,
So,
We'll give Ms. Fosberg a few minutes then.
okay.
As an analytical element in EIR, so that the platform would exist within SQL if removal were to occur.
All right, so if I could summarize that, the plan that's in front of us.
Is there somebody that forgot to mute?
It appears to be Ms. Vosberg.
Oh, okay. Is there video? It sounds like then.
Sorry, this is Patricia McPherson. Just to let you know, Jeanette's just trying, I don't know what you're hearing, but she's trying to find the brochure to send you. But I do note that Margot Griswold's there with her hand up, but if you could go to Dr. Griswold.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. I did not see her hand up, but go ahead, Ms. Griswold. We'll
Yes,
start the timer.
I couldn't figure out how to put my hand up.
Oh, she
no
was
worries.
physically putting up her hand, not the hand raised.
You know, sometimes there's a hand up and sometimes I don't ever see it. It might be under reactions. Anyway, I had.
We're going to restart the timer real quick, Ms. Griswold. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Can we restart the timer?
Oh, no, it's fine.
Go ahead.
I just wondered if Dudek is on this call, or if Dr. Gold could provide the date. There's not a date on the appendix in the GSP that discusses data gaps, discusses the modeling, and then at the end of it discusses the data gaps. I wondered if I can get a date on that memo. It's appendix, hold on a second. H, I think. It's just sort of interesting to see when they wrote that.
I'm going to the website. I'm looking at H. Give me.
I think it's H. I just need.
Appendix H is the supplemental studies analyses optimized use of Basin for public benefit. Is that the appendix you're referring to?
No, it's maybe it's FH combined. Yeah, the technical memorandum on groundwater modeling.
Okay, that's appendix F.
Sorry, appendix F. In Terra, I believe.
Okay, I'm looking.
And I just never saw an actual date on when that was.
Well, what we can do is we can get a exact date for you, but I do understand that if it's a draft document and then comments are received and then anything is updated, generally it's a valid date as of the date of the GSP document. So if you're looking, if there was an original draft and then was it finalized, that's something that we can check with Antera. But we would expect with all technical documents from a draft to a final that the actual final date would match with that of the GSP when we submit it, because then we're also asking our subcontractors to make sure they verify that all work is up to date with any comments. And remember, we received a considerable number of comments to come in. But that's a great question. And what I can do is research it and get back with you on,
Okay.
and for everyone, we'll put that on the website, that answer to that question.
Because it doesn't say that the technical memorandum is a draft.
No, it would not be a draft, but there's a chance it could have been prepared months before the draft. And then when we get comments, there may have been revisions made to that document. If we have good comments or good feedback from the public and the stakeholders, and we expect them to finalize it. So when this document is submitted to Department of Water Resources, every attachment is up to date with the final document.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should we go back to Ms. Fosbury? Was she going to email that to Dr. Gold, or was she putting that up in our chat box as a link?
Maybe I could find it faster for her.
I'm emailing it right now.
Great, thank you.
Okay, it has gone to Lizette.
Yeah, and then I just was able to text Vince's assistant. She's tracking him down in the actual water treatment plant. I've told her it's vital that he logs on to vote. So hopefully he will be joining us shortly.
Okay, Lizette, did you get my email?
Not yet. As soon as we do, oh, here it is. So give me a minute. I'm going to put it. So for everyone here on this Zoom meeting, I'm going to copy that link and put it in the chat box. Please go to the chat box and click that link. And then Claudia, perhaps with this remaining time, do you want to post that? So let me get that to you so you can post it.
Thank you.
Chair Wang and members of the board. I'm Matt Napoli from DUDEC. I just wanted to note that from looking in the files for the GSP, it appears that Appendix F was prepared on or about April of 2021 originally.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope you can all see my screen, but I'm sharing the brochure that Ms. Vosberg sent to Dr. Gold.
Ms. Fosberg, was there something you were gonna narrate along with the brochure? Is that something you just wanted the attendees
Perhaps
to have?
Patricia, would you like to narrate it?
If you guys are going to give me just a minute or so here to go through it, yeah, there are some things I could highlight for you that when you look at it, we have, and I'm assuming that's a yes, because you haven't stopped me here.
We'll let you have Ms. Fosberg's, I think, 1 minute or so left.
Okay. If you'd go back up to the top of that page, Claudia, you'll see on there, the Bolsa Chica has a sustainability report that's out as of 2021. It was the Bolsa Chica Land Trust that did that study. What's important about all of this is the discussion of sea level rise and the impacts of saltwater intrusion upon habitat, which is also part of our the GDE groundwater dependent ecosystem portion of SIGMA. And for Bolsa Chica in particular, we have links on this brochure that I'd encourage all of you to go have a look, because what they have found is that there has been the key targets for sustaining Bolsa Chica, the salt marsh habitat that we've lost, and the Belding savanna sparrow endangered species has been lost at Bolsa Chica, and that there is an immediate urging on the company that has done this sustainability report to close the engineered tidal opening that has converted the habitat of salt marsh habitat to open water and mud flats. And that is the same thing that CDFW has modeled will occur to Baiona wetlands as well, which we're trying to avoid that happening, and of course trying to avoid any further impacts to the underlying freshwater aquifers of Baiona.
Time's up, Ms. McPherson.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sending the brochure, Ms. Fosberg.
You're welcome.
Okay, sorry, just need to. Okay, also Dr. Gold posted the brochure in the chat if anybody wants to take a look at that. And just final, is there any more, is anyone else would like to participate in public forum before I go ahead and close it? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, I see nobody is indicating so, I will now close public forum.
Move on to the next item, the information items. I believe there's a staff presentation on the info items.
Yes, so I will turn it over to Ms. Lynn Williams and Mr. Napoli. And as I do that, I'm going to pull up the presentation as they go ahead and introduce themselves.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Hello, Chair Wang, members of the board. My name is Amy Lynn Williams, and I'm a water resources engineer with DUDEC. Mr. Napoli and I are filling in for Dr. Weinberger. The context for this board meeting is the overall state of drought in California. As of June 23rd, virtually the entire state was experiencing severe, extreme, or exceptional drought. This impacts surface water availability and the demand for groundwater. The City of Santa Monica has reduced its groundwater production over the past year to allow groundwater elevations to recover in the Santa Monica subbasin. Resting this local supply when surface water is available will help the city be able to continue to provide water to residents without causing undesirable results to groundwater conditions in the subbasin if reductions from the state water project continue over the next several years. Next slide, please. In March, Governor Newsom issued Executive Order N722 on the drought. Among many other provisions for the order, there is a provision that requires coordination and approval of new groundwater wells and major changes to groundwater wells in high and medium priority groundwater basins. We discussed this at the previous meeting because the City of Santa Monica requested a letter of support from the GSA for well equipping and permitting. Remember, municipal groundwater wells are exempted from the requirement of the order, but the city thought it best to continue coordinating with the GSA on these matters. Additionally, the GSA has been coordinating with the County of Los Angeles on potential wells that do fall under the order, those that provide 2 acre-feet or more and are not connected to a public water supply. It may be good to investigate formalizing this coordination for the long term so that the GSA will remain informed of any potential new wells that could impact the long-term sustainability of the subbasin. Additionally, it is recommended that the GSA coordinate with any local planning agencies to get appropriate language on coordination included in local plan updates as they're conducted. Now I would like to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Mr. Naftali.
Next slide, please. Good morning, Chair Wang and members of the board. As mentioned, my name is Matt Naftali, and I'm a principal hydrogeologist with DUDEC. It's been a while since my involvement, but I did participate in some aspects of GSP preparation, and it's a pleasure to see the members of the board and the staff again. So the GSP identified some data gaps to be filled in order to better understand and manage the basin. One of these already being addressed through the executive order that Ms. Lynn Williams just summarized is the new well permits and permits for major revisions to wells. Additional data gaps that will be particularly important to fill during this drought period are the metering of all wells within the subbasin and the installation of additional groundwater monitoring wells. So metering of all wells was recommended in the GSP, and California Water Code 10725.8, measurement devices and reporting, states that the GSA can require that all groundwater extractions in the GSA jurisdiction be measured by a water measuring device, and that the costs associated with the purchase and installing of those devices shall be borne by the owner or operator of each groundwater extraction facility, and that the GSA may require operators of groundwater extraction facilities within the GSA jurisdiction to file an annual statement with the GSA recording the total extraction in acre-feet of groundwater for the previous year. As you know, currently only the City of Santa Monica monitors groundwater extractions. Understanding the groundwater conditions would also be improved by installing additional monitoring wells. And the GSP recommends that at least one, though preferably more than one, monitoring well be installed in the subbasin. The highest priority location for a new monitoring well is the area near Marina del Rey, shown in the yellow circle on this map. Such wells will help to provide a warning against potential seawater intrusion that is induced by groundwater production within the subbasin. Currently, as you know, there's no evidence of seawater intrusion. However, there is a lack of data proximal to the coast. Next slide, please. So in terms of grant funding to help pay for closing some of these data gaps, the Department of Water Resources has an upcoming grant solicitation for Proposition 68 funds. DWR currently estimates that about $200 million from the general fund and from Prop 68 will be available, and that the solicitation will begin around October of this year. Critically overdrafted basins have already had the opportunity to apply for these funds through the program. So upcoming will be a competitive process for the non-critically overdrafted basins, of which Santa Monica is one. Santa Monica has not yet received any funding for the GSP from the state, and so is in a good position to request those funds to help with implementing the projects to help fill the data gaps identified in the GSP. In addition to the Prop 68 funds, there's a couple of other potential funds, sources of funding, and staff has been in contact with DWR's technical support services to identify potential funding and assistance for a DWR installed groundwater monitoring well. In addition, the USGS has expressed interest in partnering with the GSA to install an additional monitoring well to the north of Marina del Rey. And pursuing these funds will help close the data gaps and improve the understanding of groundwater conditions in the sub-basin. That concludes the informational presentation, and I'll turn it back to Ms. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Napoli. Are there any questions from the Board of Directors?
You see my hand raised? Do I need to raise my hand?
Go ahead, Chair Wayne.
I had a question on the grant. So are the guidelines coming out in September on what qualifies for the grant, or is that when you start applying? Like, do they have like a pre-meeting for what they're looking for and the guidelines before they open it up to apply for the grants, or does that happen? Do we have any information on that?
Chair Wayne, members of the board, I'm certainly not an expert on this particular grant funding. However, I do know that guidelines have been released in anticipation of the critically overdrafted basins applying, and I believe that those are very similar, if not identical, to those that will be used in the next solicitation in October.
Great. Thank you. I see Vice Chair Natoli has her hand up as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair Wang. Have we applied for grants and not received them, or have we not applied at all? I don't recall that we'd applied for any grants at all.
If I recall correctly, I believe staff, feel free to jump in, is the previous rounds of grants were for critically overdraft basin. So since we didn't fall in that category, we didn't apply for anything previously, is my understanding. So now that round's been done, they're opening it to other basins. That's
because
not critically overdraft.
Because Santa Clarita Valley has received 2 grants over $1 million total. It is not in critical overdraft. So we need to get our applications in and get some of this funding. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from any of the board members? That, I believe, next up is public comments. Correct, Claudia? Is that correct, Ms. Flores?
Yes.
I don't know who had their hand up, whether it's Patricia or Margot. So
I believe it was Miss McPherson. You can go ahead and mute yourself. And can we have the timer, please?
Okay, I'm going. I'll get my hand off in a second. A couple of questions, and I also want to remind you, you did go to the city of Santa Monica asking for support for a grant, I believe, which we were concerned about that as far as including other things for the groundwater dependent ecosystem, which is Baiona. And with regard to the area that is opined for putting in for future monitoring wells, I would ask, why is there not a request to have one on the coastal area south of Marina del Rey? Because that is I mean, we've spent millions of dollars for this wetland habitat, and we are very concerned about protecting its freshwater aquifers that are there, that are classified by the Water Board as potential drinking water. But in a recent Prop 65 case against SoCal Gas, the judge ordered that the groundwaters are considered drinking water, and that certainly their settlement agreement that we have states that if that groundwater changes, SoCal Gas will no longer have to mitigate to a drinking water standard. And we do not want to see any saltwater intrusion that would change the groundwater, the freshwaters that are there now, that would let SoCal Gas off the hook, because they have a good deal of contamination there. And as we move into the state's desire to see it shut down, I certainly have internal memos from SoCal Gas that they're very well aware of contamination in the groundwater there, that in the Prop 65 case that did prevail, they had to clean up the area to a drinking water standard, but Prop 65 only centers around the small area that was contested at the moment. SoCal Gas is a broad area there that needs contamination concerns. And I would like to see, from a GDE standpoint, certainly, that Baiona be considered in all of these grant requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Next, we have Ms. Griswold.
I'd like to echo Patricia's request that we also ask for a monitoring well near the Baiona wetlands, especially because in reading information in that area near the bluffs, we do have communication with the Bellflower, Baiona, and Silverado aquifers.
Yeah.
And we need to know really what is, what's there now, identified there's a data gap. And the state is very interested in groundwater dependent ecosystems. And I think if you look behind me, this is a marsh, salt marsh, that does not have any full title, but is tied to its groundwater. And this recovered at Baiona simply when some unpermitted drains were capped and filled and not allowed anymore to drain both surface and groundwater. So this is an example of the importance of the surface groundwater connection at the Baiona wetlands, and could have significant impact if we see saltwater intrusion. So really a monitoring well to the south should be included. And it sounds like there's monies, although I'm not familiar with really what it costs to monitor those wells. I'm sure it's not cheap. But I think besides the drinking water of Santa Monica, we should be aware of the Baiona wetlands importance, the last and largest wetland in Los Angeles County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griswold. Would anybody else like to make a public comment? Okay, Chair Wayne, can we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the action item?
I guess before we do that, I just want to check with the rest of the board members if there's any discussion on the item. The first, we had questions, then public comments. Is there any discussion that any board member would like to bring up on the item before we move on? I think just one question, I think, or clarification, or Vice Chair Natoli, you mentioned Santa Clarita got those grants. I was curious if you knew which grant it was, because similar to ours, the city of Santa Monica applied for before, it was the multi-drought. It was a different grant program that wasn't really a GSP related grant program. It was more on developing local supplies and recharging local supplies. So I'm curious if that's like one that Santa Clarita got, whereas the Prop 60A was for specific or GSP implementation projects.
Chair Wang, both of the grants were specific to GSP implementation and completion.
Okay. Great. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other discussion before we move on? Okay.
Hey, John has his hand up. I can see it.
He's got a physical and a virtual hand up.
And a virtual hand. Yeah, so regarding the next action item, are we about to vote on the consent letter? Is that the next thing? So if it is
Letter of support.
The letter of support, sorry. Yeah, I don't know if that was on, when I looked at it, it wasn't on the publicly distributed materials, because the packet that I got had the letter, but the packet that I saw on the website didn't. So I don't know if that meets the 3 days requirement for circulating that publicly.
John, and I apologize, the website, we're going to update that. So there's two places to post information, on the first page and then on the second page. And again, I apologize that people had to search through. It just was not in both, on both pages. And so we will update and change this website so that it is much more user-friendly. But it was not in both places, just one place. So I apologize for that.
Oh, okay. And then the only other comment I had on the letter was there's a sentence, I think, in the second paragraph that's, let me pull it up again and double check. It says, or third paragraph, City of Santa Monica is the primary groundwater producer from the Santa Monica subbasin and the sole producer of drinking water in the subbasin. I'd like to suggest a change that it says is currently the sole producer of drinking water. Other than that, I have no issues with the letter.
So I think when we get to that, we could move to approve with that modification, if you would like to motion that, John.
Sure. All right. That's all the discussion I had. Thanks.
So Chair Wang, can we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the action item?
Yes.
And would you like to introduce the item?
Sure, we're going back under. So the last item is the action item, the approval of letter of support for the City of Santa Monica existing potable water wells. And the board will consider approving the letter of support in pursuant to Executive Order N0722. So I believe the letter was attached in was included in the front page of the GSA, wasn't in the second link, as Dr. Gold noted on the materials for the meeting. Is there any questions that the directors have for staff regarding the letter? We heard from Director Nguyen on the suggested modification. There's no question, comments for staff from the directors. Oh, sorry, I see Vice Chair Natoli with the hand up.
Thank you, Chair Wang. Just a comment. It's a very detailed letter to the proposed amendment. While it's certainly factual, I would say it is redundant, because if it reads is the sole producer, that means as of the date of the letter. But I have no issue with adding currently the sole producer. But my question is, or my comment perhaps is, as it's so detailed, it might be helpful to include something about what will happen to the wells which are being replaced, to show that we've evaluated what will happen to those wells that are being replaced, whether they are going on backup, whether they are being decommissioned, just what is the status of those? So it doesn't look like we're trying to double pump. That would be my suggestion. Let's just include something about what's happening with the replaced wells.
Thank you, Vice Chair Natoli. Are there any other comments from the Board of Directors? If not, we can open it to public comment.
Well, just to follow up on the comment from Vice Chair Natoli, the staff, can staff clarify what happens to the existing wells? Dr. Goldie, could you please clarify what happens to the existing wells once the replacement well has been drilled?
When the replacement well has been drilled, what we will do is destroy the obsolete well, and we follow all state and LA County guidelines for well destruction. It's actually a very specified procedure, but those wells would be destroyed.
Okay, so we could ask staff to add that to the letter as well to clarify that the wells that are replaced will be destroyed. Okay, if not, any other comments from the Board of Directors? Any other? If not, we'll move to public comment. Any public comments? I don't see anybody's hand raised.
I think there was something in the chat from Ms. Vosberg.
Says, I think that just, can we get a motion to apply for a grant from the monitoring well on the southern end? That unfortunately is not the, I believe, related to the item here, right? It's also not tabled for, we could ask staff to table that for the next board meeting to agendize that for discussion, Ms. Vosberg.
Thank you. I think this is a really critical issue.
Okay, so with no public comments on the item, we'll go back to item 7A to move forward to approve. So I hear there's two modifications. One is to a suggestion by Director Nguyen to include the current sole producer of drinking water in the sub-basin. And then the addition as requested by Vice Chair Natoli to include what happens with the existing wells as when it's replaced, and that's to be destroyed. So I see another hand up now from Ms. McPherson.
Yes, I just had a question based on what you had just said, that when Ms. Vosberg asked about the monitoring well, a motion, does that mean that the circled portion of what DUDAC has called for as an area to put in a future monitoring well, is that something that you're voting on, that is the only area? Because otherwise it would seem that Ms. Vosberg's question for considering elsewhere is still in the mix.
What
you're
we're
not
voting on
any of that yet.
Yeah, what we're voting on right now is just the replacement of the wells. So the action isn't on any monitoring well. My understanding, and staff feel free to jump in to correct if I'm wrong on this. My understanding on the location identified is the general location in Marina Del Rey. The actual location of where that monitoring well will go has not been confirmed yet.
And that confirmation will not necessarily include just that circled area. Am I correct?
That's to my understanding. It's that general area is the Marina Del Rey area.
Whether it's north or south.
I'm not sure if that has been determined yet. So, but I would ask staff that's more knowledge on that to jump in if they have that information, or we may have to confirm with the groundwater modelers that produced that memo and suggested that, where the data gaps are.
Right. So I mean, that is our question, so that it does include the GDE that is Baiona. We have concerns that area be broadened for consideration whenever you're voting on that determination.
I understand the request.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Natoli.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify what I heard. What I heard Chair Wang say is that Ms. Vosberg's request about the monitoring well would be agendized at a future meeting. So if I could clarify for Ms. McPherson, we're not voting on a location for a monitoring well today. We are voting on a support, general support to the city of Santa Monica for these replacement wells. And an exact location would be determined at a future time. And we would also discuss that at a future meeting. That was my understanding of the conversation.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the action today is for groundwater production wells. It's not related to the monitoring wells. So does anybody want to move the motion with the proposed modifications suggested by Director Nguyen and also the suggested addition by Vice Chair Natoli?
I'll move for that. Move
Do
to
we
approve
have,
the letter with the suggested changes.
Vice Chair
Yeah.
Natoli.
I think we have a second from Vice Chair Natoli. Ms. Flores, can you do a roll call vote, please?
yes. Chair Wang,
Aye.
Vice Chair Natoli,
Aye.
Director Nguyen,
Aye.
Director Singletary,
Aye.
and Director DeMoss. I believe is still not present.
He has an emergency in the water treatment plant. I did ask to send a replacement to vote, and at this point, we do not have a replacement.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Okay, are there any other items the directors would like to discuss at this meeting prior to the adjournment?
Mr. Chair, this is Vice Chair Natoli. I wanted to address a couple of issues that were brought up at the beginning of our meeting today.
Please do.
The first dealt with information requests from the Department of Water Resources. I just wanted to confirm that any requests coming to the GSA from the Department of Water Resources are directly answered by either the GSA or our consultants. And if I could get a comment from either Mr. Naftali or Ms. Lynn Williams about that, I'd appreciate it.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair Natoli, I had a hard time hearing you. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. I just want to make sure that any requests for information that come in to the GSA from the Department of Water Resources are answered by either the GSA or our consultant, DUDEC. And could you confirm for me that that is the case?
I believe that is the case, as stigma in general requires that all comments be addressed or received and handled, according to the guidelines.
Thank you. And then I just have one other, this is more a personal comment, that I have the utmost respect for the doctors Gold, and I have complete faith in their integrity in all communications and actions related to anything related to water in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
If I can jump in and just make a comment, Gina, to the first question, which is, I do receive emails from Department of Water Resources, and I share those directly with Jill if they can be answered on a technical nature. And so I think we've only had one email that's come from Department of Water Resources regarding clarification of how the data was tabulated. And Jill had shared that this was a question that all submitted GSPs were asked to clarify. And so she dealt directly to answer their question, and they were 100% satisfied with the data table.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Gold.
Any other comments from anyone? All right, we're 1 minute early, so I'll adjourn the quarterly GSA board meeting at 10:59 a.m. Thank you, everyone, for your time and participating.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.